Step one of being able to create genuine connections in your business that lead to income and impact is communication with self. Every day, instead of waking up and rolling over and grabbing your smartphone to check into others' lives, check into your own life first. Because the communication we have with ourselves sets the foundation for all of our external communication. And I'm sure many of you, like many of you, I've had times where I don't do this and I wake up and I roll over and I start checking email and then hop on Instagram. And then I walk about the world and I have my first connection with another person and I just feel agitated and I'm like scattered and I'm short-tempered. That's because I haven't taken the time to connect within first. So wake up every day, simple practice. And when I tell you, my friends, this is a game changer. Wake up every day after you go to the bathroom, do your business, come back to your quiet space and ask yourself this one question. How am I feeling? Take 5 to 10 minutes, put pen to paper, not typing it on your notes app on your phone, but pen to paper and let yourself come up with the answers. What you're doing is invoking stream of consciousness.
This is episode 75 of Keeping It Real Estate. Today, we're going to talk about communication with a best-selling author, professional communication coach, and TEDx speaker, Renée Marino. She's going to give you guys so much information that's going to help with your personal and professional day-to-day lives on how you can effectively communicate with confidence through simple and easy tools. Renée, what inspired you to become a communication coach, and how do you get started in this field?
Great question, Dan. First of all, I'm so happy to be here with you all. This might be my favorite title of a podcast. And to answer your question, my previous career was as a professional actress on Broadway, in film and TV for decades. And in 2013, I was playing the role of Frankie Valli's wife in Jersey Boys on Broadway. And it's a Sunday matinee show. I'm on stage with my coworkers singing My Boyfriend's Back. And staring at me from 10 rows in the audience was the legend Clint Eastwood. We got word that Clint was going to be directing the film version of Jersey Boys. And truth be told, like many of you, I discounted myself right away. I'm like, oh, they're going to hire A-list celebrities out of Los Angeles. Marissa Tomei is going to play my role. So I didn't think much of it until they started calling people in from our cast to audition. And they were looking for a Mary Delgado. So they were looking for someone to play my role. And at this point, I contacted my agent and I said, listen, I'd love to see if we can get me an audition, which for many of you who are not in the acting world, an audition is just an interview, basically. See if you can get me an audition for the role of Mary. Weeks go by, my agent tries and tries, and she calls me one day and says, Renée, I'm sorry, they won't see you for the role of Mary, but they'll give you an audition for one of the smaller roles, one of the angels who sings My Boyfriend's Back. And at this point, I hung up the phone. I felt my feelings. I was so frustrated because I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, I'm playing this role at the highest level I could be. So I felt my frustration. I cried it out. And that's a big step. Step number one to being able to create genuine connections through communication. It's that communication with self and feeling what you have to feel. So that's what I did. And then 30 minutes go by and I throw my hands up and I'm like, you know what am I going to do? I'm just going to go in and audition for one of the angels. I'm in the audition room that day, speaking with the casting director. And he says, Renée, would you like to sing the song first or read the scene? And at that moment, Dan, I heard this little voice within say, you have to do this. It feels too right. And before I even knew what I was doing, I looked at the casting director in the eyes and I said, Jeff, I was really hoping to come in and read for the role of Mary Delgado. And he looks back at me and he's like, I was just thinking the same thing. And I'm like, amazing, great. So I do the audition that day. I leave there feeling so grateful because I got the chance. That's all I wanted, to know that I tried. I got to go in there and audition. 2 weeks later, my agent calls me and she says, Renée, you're Mary Delgado in the movie. Clint Eastwood loves you. And I'm like, what? Like, most surreal moment of my life.
Wow.
Cut to the first day of filming. I'm on the way to film my first scene. And I want to preface this by saying I had never done TV or film before. I need to make that clear. So picture that. It felt like jumping off of a cliff, right? The butterflies were flying around in my stomach. The nerves were kicking in. And again, I heard that little voice that said, Renee, you know what you're doing. Trust in your talent and leap. Clint Eastwood hired you. So I walk in. Everyone's like, Renee, welcome. And up to my right side walks the man himself, Clint. And he says, I went around to all the different casts, but nobody was in your class. And then you came in and put yourself on tape, and it was the icing on the cake. And I'm just holding back the tears.
Wow.
That day, Dan, and every day that followed, when I would film, I would sit and eat lunch with Clint Eastwood, and I would pick his brain like a sponge. Clint, what was it like when you started acting? Clint, where did you grow up? Clint, what did this camera shot mean? Because I knew that I was in the presence of greatness, and I was going to soak it up for all it was worth. And that's another vital part of communication, being a complete listener. Listening, not just to respond, but listening to hear that other person. And that's what I did with Clint. A month into the film, I'm eating lunch once again, because that's my favorite thing to do, really, everybody, is eat. And I'm sitting there with Clint, the producer of the film, and myself, and they start talking about how Clint knew he wanted me for the role when he saw me perform on Broadway. And I put my fork down and I said, do you guys want to hear a funny story? I never had an appointment for the role of Mary. The only reason I got to audition is because I opened up my big mouth in the room and asked. And the two of them look at each other and they're like, what do you mean? We requested you. We said we want the girl from the Broadway show to come in and audition. Imagine my surprise. I came to find out that day that there was a middle person, casting associate, juggling a few films at once and just dropped the ball. And I love this story so much because nothing more signifies the power of communication and having the ability to communicate with confidence and from the heart. Because think about it, Dan, if I didn't speak up that day in the room, I could have missed my once in a lifetime opportunity. I could have been sitting in the movie theater watching Jersey Boys instead of on the screen in Jersey Boys, and never knowing my entire life that Clint Eastwood was waiting for me to walk through that door.
Wow. Wow. What a story. I love it. I love it so much. It's so much to talk about there. I mean, can you share maybe some common communication challenges that you see in business professionals, or how do you help people overcome some of these communication skills?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the greatest pitfalls that I see and I hear is the belief that communication means confrontation. And I would like for you all to hear this and hear it well. Communication does not mean confrontation. And by believing they're one and the same, we are denying ourselves wonderful opportunities for connection, wonderful opportunities to make that income we want and that impact. And the reason I say this is such a pitfall is because when we have that belief, it holds us back from speaking up, almost like I did in the room that day. I spoke up. And oftentimes what I hear is that people think speaking up coincides with doing it from a place of aggression or anger or has a negative connotation. But really, if you understand this skill of speaking up with grace and love, only positive results come from that. Because when we speak up from listening to that quiet voice of our soul, right? You can call it your gut instincts. You could call it intuition. However you want to label it, it is that inner compass that is always guiding you in the right direction. That inner compass that allows you to speak at the right time, to make the right business deal, to connect with the right person for your business who maybe is going to, join you in this real estate venture. And when we start to, tune in and tap into that, we then can speak up from a place of love and grace, and we don't fear that it's coming off in a negative light.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times when we're doing business deals, or for folks that are listening, you're speaking with your investors, or you want to talk to maybe your general partner team, or you're trying to do a deal with a broker. your ability to communicate effectively from a place of grace and love and just honesty goes so far. You know, instead of coming across with I got to be right, and coming across in a that I know the answer, more of I'm here to help. Really seems to be a difference maker from what I see when I'm communicating with a lot of investors or business owners. It seems to me like that piece is massive. How do you become better at that? How do you become a better communicator and just more comfortable? Is it just daily practice? I mean, are there any habits that people should start to think about and create?
Yes, so many. I teach what is called the connect method. So I'm going to run through these 7 steps quickly, just so you get a feel for what I mean when I talk about connection. Because Simon Sinek says it so beautifully. We don't do business with companies. We do business with people. And oftentimes in our businesses, we are so wrapped up in the tactics, in the statistics, in the tools, in what we have to say and our point we have to get across, that we forget about the ground level foundational skill of communication. So, step 1 of being able to create genuine connections in your business that lead to income and impact is communication with self. Every day, instead of waking up and rolling over and grabbing your smartphone to check into others' lives, check into your own life first. Because the communication we have with ourselves sets the foundation for all of our external communication. And I'm sure many of you, like many of you, I've had times where I don't do this and I wake up and I roll over and I start checking email and then hop on Instagram. And then I walk about the world and I have my first connection with another person and I just feel agitated and I'm like scattered and I'm short-tempered. That's because I haven't taken the time to connect within first. So wake up every day, simple practice. And when I tell you, my friends, this is a game changer. Wake up every day after you go to the bathroom, do your business, come back to your quiet space and ask yourself this one question. How am I feeling? Take 5 to 10 minutes, put pen to paper, not typing it on your notes app on your phone, but pen to paper, and let yourself come up with the answers. What you're doing is invoking stream of consciousness, which is pulling all that stuff from your subconscious that you don't often think about into your conscious mind through your hand and onto the page. And it's this beautiful mental dump that allows you to get it out of your brain onto the page. And then when you're done, you can look back at it. And what's so enlightening is what I have found is I'll look back and I'll think, oh, I'm over that argument with my husband. No, I'm not, because I'm still writing about it, right? And it's almost like a mirror of things that I'm not aware of. And what that does is that grounds you in yourself before you move about your day, before you make those business deals, before you reach out to those individuals to become a limited partner, right, in your real estate venture. This is key. And then do the same thing before bed. How am I feeling? It's only 5 to 10 minutes. Let yourself write, and then you can sleep more peacefully. So that's step 1, communication with self. Step 2, own who you are. What does this mean, Renee? Own who you are means once you involve yourself in step 1, communicating with yourself, you get clear on who am I, right? What do I want? Why am I in real estate? What's my why behind wanting to get this big project underway? Understanding yourself from such a core level and being clear about what your zone of genius is and what your zone of genius is not, then allows you to own that. Because all of us, no matter who we are, we have those strengths, we have those weaknesses. I'll give myself as an example. When I started my business, and I was doing everything myself, my funnels, my this, I was like, like the first time I heard of a funnel, I was like, what do you mean, a beer funnel? What is that? And I start doing this stuff myself, and I realized that's not my zone of genius. My zone of genius is in connecting with people, speaking on stages, helping them to share their stories. So I started to own that and say, you know what? I'm going to outsource. So I know that my time is much more well spent when I'm in front of the camera, when I'm on the stage, when I'm connecting with people. And by doing that, I'm owning who I am. Right. And then I'm not trying to be anybody else or step into a lane that's not mine. And another important part of owning yourself We are in this digital age of technology, my friends, and it's a beautiful gift, but it's also dangerous, because what I find is many people are one person behind that screen, whether it's in a virtual meeting, posting on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. They're a different person than they are when you meet them face to face. And I call this keyboard confidence. In the book, I say keyboard confidence is that raw, unfiltered confidence that is only present when behind a screen and typing on a keyboard. We've all seen it. You maybe go on LinkedIn and a friend you know on a very deep level posts something and you look at it and you're like, huh, who wrote that? And what have they done with my friend? Because I know they wouldn't have the confidence to say that in person.
Wow.
Right? And
Yeah.
an example, I'm sure, Dan, I'm sure you've seen it.
All the time. Yeah. We see it all the time. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's so dangerous, especially in this space of real estate. Being in the real estate space is all about connecting with people, because people, if they don't know, like, and trust you, they are not going to want to invest with you, partner with you, get advice from you. So we must be that same person that we meet when we're having coffee with someone, the same person when we show up on a Google Meet, just like this.
Mhm.
So a really powerful way to do this is ask yourself 2 questions. Before you send out that text, send out that email, or write that post, ask yourself, would I be comfortable saying this in person?
Mhm.
If the answer is no, reframe it the way you would. If
Mhm.
the answer is yes, great, post away, send the email.
Mhm.
And the second question is, does this message represent me and my intention?
Mhm.
How often have you written up an email and you clicked send only to look at it and go, oh my gosh, the tone of that email sounds so bad? Because we don't take the second to assess what we've written and ask ourselves, does this represent me and my intention? And the reason you want to do this is because before you meet those potential clients in person, you most likely are communicating through digital means. You want to leave that strong first impression. So it's worth it to take that power of the pause, look that email back over before you click send, because what we write is a representation of us.
Man, I hope you guys are listening and taking notes. I'm over here taking notes as fast as I can because
Yeah.
this is such good content. So I appreciate it. You're out. So this is number 2. I think we're on number 2 of
Yes.
7. This is
Yes,
great.
we're only on 2. We're only on 2. So step 1, communication with self. Step 2, own that self. Own who you are and own who you're not. I just want to add a little piece to this as well. In this virtual world we're living in, it's so easy to think we have to post the highlight reels, right? I'm Renee and I'm so good at this and only showing my best parts. But the truth is, people are craving authenticity, craving authenticity. So when I say own yourself and I say own who you're not, own those things that you're not the best at. Like, I love being like, nope, I don't want to do my funnel. Who's good at that? Right? I'm not trying to pretend that I'm something I'm not. And by doing that, people appreciate who I am because they know who I am.
Mhm.
So
Love it.
step 3 of the Connect method is nail down your information. What does this mean? This means when you are entering a meeting, when you are connecting with a person for the first time, gather the information you need to connect with them, i.e., if it's a person that you're potentially going to partner with, hop on Google, speak to someone who has worked with them before, get some information that you can share with that person when you meet them, that shows them you took the time to research who they were. You took energy out of your own business and energy out of your day to learn a bit about them. And what that does is that makes that person feel respected, and nothing feels good than being respected. It makes that person feel seen and it makes that person feel heard, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
like if I met you for the first time and I did some research and I'm like, Dan, I cannot believe you're like a snowboarding star. You're a snowboarding star before your life in real estate. That is so interesting. Like, I'd love to know how you got into that.
Yeah.
Right? Like just that little piece. If you and I had never met, and I know that, it's like this little twinge of, wow, okay. This girl didn't just hop into this meeting and she's not just trying to talk about me, I, but she gathered information about me.
Mhm. Immediately
And
puts them on a different level. You're like, wow, this person cared.
yes. And it puts them at a human level. Again, it's not just business. It's not just like, how can you help me, Dan? And this is how I can help you. It's like, no, who are you? Get out. You're from Vancouver or you're from Canada. My aunt is too. She lives here. We create a connection in that way.
Yeah.
And then taking it a step further, nailing down your information in your space of your business. Gather that information, have those statistics, have those numbers, know your finances, right?
Mm.
Know that information, because too often we jump into things quickly and then maybe a question is asked and we don't have the answer, and that's okay. We don't always have to know everything at all times, but when it comes to your own business, you want to have as much information as possible. And if you don't, ask questions. My friends, step 3, nail down your information. Asking questions is such a big part of this. And if the first question doesn't help, go 3 questions deep. Keep asking and don't be ashamed or afraid of reaching out to others who may have more knowledge than you. So step 3, nail down information. Does this feel good, Dan? Does this feel like digestible things that we can do?
Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. Awesome. So the next step of the Connect method is next level storytelling.
Mm.
Human beings connect through story. And if you want to stand out amongst the crowds, if you want to let someone know that you are not just in it for the business and you're not just in it to win, but you're in it to connect, start with a story. Just like I did here today. I shared my story of how I booked the role in that film, which became a bridge of me then becoming a communication coach, right? It gave you some backstory about me instead of just saying, hey, everybody, I'm Renée Marino. I was a professional actress for decades and decades, and then I became a coach, and then I did this. That's great. That's okay. But when you connect with people through a story, that's what allows them to find themselves in your story, and the defenses go down. Now it doesn't feel like we're talking at you. Now we're talking with you.
Gosh, it's so powerful. I now that you say that, when I think about people who massively influenced me, once they started talking about their story, I'm like, gosh, this person is a lot like me. and,
Yes.
and it makes you want to be closer to them.
Yes, because we find ourselves in those stories. Think about commercials. Think about movies, everybody. When we're watching a movie and we are like in it and we are zoned in, it's because we're finding ourselves in that story, or we're connecting with that character in one way, shape, or form, and it's making us even more invested. So
Mhm.
start to craft your story.
Mhm.
When you meet with a potential client, instead of just saying, oh, so we have, multifamily, 100 units or more, and this is how it started, talk about a situation that you had that made you really passionate about multifamily investing. Maybe your aunt was struggling in her life at one point. She didn't know what she was going to do. And then she found multifamily real estate and her life changed. She went from on the verge of welfare to making the most revenue she ever has. She went from feeling depressed to feeling unstoppable. She went from feeling like it was the end of her rope to a new beginning.
Mhm.
Man, you tell that story to someone who's about to invest in multifamily, they'd be like, what do you need? Take my money, baby.
Right.
Yeah. So stories. So for yourself, start to sit down with yourself and craft your own story. What is your backstory? What is your why behind what you do? So next level storytelling. So we got communication with self, own who you are, nail down your information, and next level storytelling. Are you ready for the next step?
I'm so ready.
Okay, Dan, this one's my favorite and you'll get it because you know me.
Okay.
Energize through movement. What? Renee, how is this going to help us to rocket in real estate investing? How is this going to help me rocket in my entrepreneurial journey? How? Oh, let me tell you. Movement research shows a direct connection between movement and improved cognitive performance. So if you want to be focused, if you want to be able to connect with another person through complete listening, through sharing of a story, you must move your body. And this means before any interaction you have, before you hop on the Google Meet or the Zoom, or you meet that person for coffee or in the office, move your body, whether that's walking, whether it's your workout of choice. For me, I'm a dancer, so I love dancing. And a simple way to do this, create a playlist for yourself. I call it a hashtag power prep playlist. And this is full of those songs that make you feel unstoppable. When you listen to them, you're like in the zone. You're like, ooh, I got this. I'm going to nail this deal today. I'm going to connect with this person. And it gets you in a place of positivity, good energy. What this does is it transforms that stagnant energy that we all have, especially we sit in front of computers, we're inundated with blue light, right? That allows our bodies to be full of stagnant energy. And when we move, we change that stagnant energy into fuel. And now we're like a rocket ship. We walk into that meeting, we have energy, and nothing will connect you more with a person than energy, good energy. So before anything you do, move your body. And Dan, I'm sure you are an athlete. Like, I'm sure you can understand this on a deep level.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What I love about it right now is I probably should be taking some time throughout the day to do some jumping jacks and get a little bit hyped, bring in some energy. I catch myself like just over here working away, computer time. And then, hey, how you doing? Oh, good. I'm good too. I should probably every, 20, 30 minutes do some jumping jacks.
Yes. And that's how simple it can be. Again, my book, Becoming a Master Communicator, what I teach, these are simple, easy to implement practices that you can utilize every day, no matter what. It's not going to take you 6 months to implement this connect method, my friends. You can start this today. So energize through movement. After you listen to this podcast, get up, move around, or as you're listening to it, we have a couple more steps. You know what? Walk around your neighborhood, walk your dog as you're listening. Our bodies need it, and movement is medicine. So that is the next step of Connect method. So we have communication with self, own who you are, nail down your information, next level storytelling, energize through movement, and the next step, complete listening. We have all seen when we turn on the television at any time, any channel, no matter where we are, we see a whole lot of people talking at each other, talking over each other, but never talking with each other. And the reason this happens is because they are not complete listeners. And we all fall prey to this sometimes. I'll raise my hand. That's why I can talk about it. We have allowed our minds to be distracted. All day long, we're task switching. We have a million tabs open on the computer. We're going from the computer to answering a text message, to writing an email, to telling our husband or wife to call us when they get to that place. Because of this, I did so much research for the book. Because of this, our attention spans have waned. And now our minds find it really hard to focus for any period of time, really, because we've become like Pavlov's dogs, where those dogs were conditioned to salivate when they heard the bell. We are conditioned to check out of listening the minute a notification goes off on our phone, or the minute we look at that tab open and an ad pops up. And this is causing such danger in our relationships, because nothing feels more wonderful to a person when they feel heard. And when we listen in a complete way, it's a two-way gift. We give the person who's speaking the gift of having an open platform to be heard, and we ourselves gain the gift of learning something new, gaining a new perspective, or the best, realizing we are more alike than we are different. Whew! Let that land.
Yeah, wow. That one hits me pretty hard because as I'm sitting at my desk every day, I have a lot of stuff going on, phone calls, and then I get home and I'm talking to my son, and he's talking to me about something, and I get distracted with my phone, and it's like just let's cut it out and give 100% focus to the person you're talking to and be present and actually control the mind more. And I think that one probably hits me the hardest so far of the 7. So great.
Yeah.
I love it.
And this is a great study that I researched as I was writing the book. It's called the iPhone effect.
Mm.
And my friends, if you implement this, I'm going to tell you, this is going to create such impact in your lives and for those people that you are doing business with. This study had 2 people sitting at a table, and there was a phone on the table. Neither person picked up the phone. Neither person looked at the phone. But simply having the phone out in view proved to lessen the quality of the conversation and proved to be a distraction. So I share this with you so the next time you're in a meeting or with your children or even on the computer where the person can't see if your phone's next to you, I challenge you to put your phone out of sight. It is next level connection because you don't have that gnawing temptation in the back of your mind to be like, all right, well, I just need to look. Oh, well, maybe someone texted me. Oh, maybe that email came in. Nope. Put it away out of sight. And here are quick little steps to invoke this complete listening. The first thing, ground yourself, feel your feet on the floor, feel your butt in the chair if you're sitting, and feel like a tree rooted in the ground, like you are getting energy from the earth. Then take deep belly breaths. What do I mean? We mostly breathe shallow from here, from our chest up. That's how we're used to breathing. And what that does is that makes our nervous system move faster, which then disconnects us because we cannot focus. But when you take a deep breath in your belly and allow your belly to expand when you take a breath in, feel like you're expanding like a tire. And then when you breathe out, contract and feel like those ab muscles coming in. And this slows down your nervous system so you can focus. So that's the first step. The second step, close out all those distractions. Close out the tabs on your computer, put the phone out of sight, put your computer on do not disturb, whatever you have to do, be in a quiet space, but become what I call distraction proof. Then, as you're listening, make eye contact with the person. Tune into what they're saying. And when you have that moment that we all have of wanting to jump in because you're like, I got something good to say and it's great and it's going to really further your point, take that deep breath in again. Allow yourself to sit back, make eye contact once again, and listen for commonalities. It's like play a little game with yourself. What can I catch when Dan's talking? What can I capture that is similar to myself? I.e., Dan's talking and he's like, yeah, and it's so funny. I just took a trip to New Jersey and boom, I caught that commonality. He was in New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. Wow. Okay. Hold that in the bank. When that person is done speaking, the next step is to embrace the silence. What do I mean by this? We are so afraid of the silence because somewhere in our psyche, we have convinced ourselves that if we don't jump in and talk right after the person, we're going to sound stupid. We're going to sound like we don't know what they're talking about. We're going to make them think that we are not qualified for this job. And that is false. And then what happens by believing that is we jump in, with filler words. And then we wonder why we don't sound eloquent. It's because we're afraid of the silence. But I'm going to tell you this, my friends, when someone is actively listening in a complete way, many times they do need that second of silence to allow what was heard to process. Like, wow. Wow, Dan, that's so interesting that you say that because I was just talking about this with someone else. Having that moment of allowing what they said to absorb, that is powerful. So don't be afraid of the silence. And the last step to being a complete listener is reflecting back those commonalities. So if Dan and I were in the conversation and I let him speak, and I'm now going to speak after letting what he said absorb, I would start and say, Dan, thank you so much for sharing that. I have to make you laugh. I can't believe you said you were just in New Jersey over the summer. I live in New Jersey. What are the odds? Like, where were you? What part of New Jersey were you in? Right? And automatically, a connection's created. The defenses go down because we have something that is similar. So, complete listening, my friends. That is the 6th step to the connect method.
Gosh, I love it. I was on a call with an investor probably an hour ago, and they would be quiet after I was done talking. And initially I was like, this is kind of odd that they're quiet. But after I noticed they were quiet every time, I decided just to be quiet with them. And I think it actually helped us communicate more instead of me just continuing to talk. So funny that, that's where you're talking. It's a great skill. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I love you that you shared that, because that has happened to me. I'm naturally a high energy person, if you can't tell. And my energy is, I'm like, okay, great. And I jump in and I'm, lots of energy. So for me, just like you, Dan, I had my first conversation with a person recently who was very quiet after I spoke. And I felt that impulse to want to jump in and say, so yeah, and right, and keep talking, because there was a part of me that got a little anxious, and I'm thinking, what's going on, right? But
Yeah.
then reminding myself of, no, Renee, it's okay. Power of the pause, embrace the silence. And
Mhm.
what it also does, I believe, is it shows a sign of confidence. It's confidence when you don't have to be the first one with your hand raised, when you don't have to jump in with all of the answers and all of the knowledge. There's power in taking that pause. So don't be afraid to embrace the silence. Step 6 of the Connect method, complete listening. And we are on to the last step. Are you ready?
Ready.
Last step of the Connect method is talk from the heart.
Mm.
Oh, Renee, how do you do this? The way to do this is to understand that it's not about perfection, it's about connection.
Mm.
We oftentimes get so in our heads, right? We're speaking to that investor on the phone, and beforehand, we're like, okay, I have to make sure I say this, that. I hit all the points, right? I got to say that. Blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is we get so consumed with us and me and I have to say this, and we want them to understand us, that instead of seeking to understand them, we're seeking to be understood. And I don't know about you, but people don't want to work with a person like that. People want to work with that person who first gives them that open platform to be heard. And I now recognize what you need and what you want. And now I can come in and speak about what I do and how I believe I can help you, because based on what your needs are, I have this, that, and that. And not thinking that it has to be perfect. My friends, think about some of your favorite speakers or some of the people you look up to and you've watched their videos on YouTube time and time again. I encourage you to go back and watch them tonight and see if the reason you loved them and what they had to say, if it was because they were perfect. If it was because they got up there and they didn't flub one word, they didn't go off on a tangent. If that's the reason, I don't know how much you really love what that person was saying. Because the truth of the matter is, more times than not, they flubbed a word, they went off on a tangent, something happened, a light fell or whatever happened, and you didn't even care. You didn't even notice it because what they were saying was so impactful for you because you connected with them and their message. So let this idea of perfection go and understand that it's about them. Seek to understand what they need. Why do they want to invest? What is their purpose for doing this? Because I can assure you, if you understand them first, what you're going to say afterward is going to be much more powerful and much more in connection with their needs. So talk from the heart and take what I call imperfect action.
Mm.
Do that thing, even when you're afraid.
Mhm.
See, we often think that confidence comes first and then action comes second. But when I teach entrepreneurs and business owners to get on camera with confidence. And what I teach them is that even if they're shaking in their boots and they're about to press record and they feel like they're going to throw up, but they do it anyway, and they get the video done, and then 5 minutes later they're like, whew, I mean, it wasn't great, but I did it. Now it's like, oh, you did it. Good job. And then a little nugget of confidence is built. And those nuggets of confidence build upon each other to become an armor of self-belief.
Mm.
So in your space that you're working in right now,
Mm.
maybe you're afraid to speak up to your manager. You're
Mm.
afraid to speak up to your business partner because you don't want to rock the boat. You're afraid what they're going to say. I assure you that if you do not speak up, what you're going to be missing out on are missed opportunities, wasted energy by mentally ruminating, and wasting the one thing we can't get back, time.
Mm.
So talk from the heart, take that imperfect action, and remember that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. So you
Gosh.
might as well speak up and ask.
And Renee, such powerful, easy things to apply here. I'm so grateful that you shared those 7 steps. Is this all in becoming a master communicator? That it's all in your book?
Parts of these, yeah, most everything I'm talking about is in the book. It is throughout the chapter, so it's not listed as I just shared it with all of you, but it is all throughout the book. And then on top of that, each section in the book, each chapter has a reflection section for you to put pen to paper. So it's a guidebook. This isn't a book where you're just like, cool, good information, and then toss it on the shelf and it gets dusty. This is, I like to say, it's a communication check-in.
Mhm.
So I don't know about you. I have books that I carry with me everywhere I go
Mm.
just for a communication check-in or to remind me of my power when I'm feeling not so great. And this book is that, because at any day or time you're about to enter a meeting and you're like, I need some confidence. Go to chapters 7 and 8, pick a practice and remind yourself, okay, when I enter this meeting, I'm going to have my phone away. I'm going to have my head up and out into the world, seeing what's around me. I'm going to make eye contact with my potential investor. I am going to listen, and it gives you these practices that you can utilize every day to really, really improve your communication.
Gosh, I love it. This is the podcast. This listen, you guys, I could tell I could go back and listen to this 3, 4, 5 times and really take some time to dig into each of these and figure out how can I improve here. I mean, I'm taking as many notes as I can and I'm thinking about it, and I have a lot of thoughts that relate to what Renee is talking about here, but I could go back in and really dig in. And honestly, I should just be reading this book. I mean, this is what life is about, communicating. How do you communicate more effectively? So you can always work on it. That's why we wanted to bring Renee on. And I just got to ask real quick, you co-hosted Tony Robbins and a Dean Graziosi World Summit. Is that right? Can you tell us
Yes.
more real quick on that piece? What was that like? And
Yes. Well, as I just shared with you, the course that I teach is called Connecting on Camera. And that came about because when I started my business, the world just shut down. And I decided to become a part of Dean Graziosi free challenge. We see everyone doing these challenges now. And it was called the Start Over Challenge. And the homework was to go live in the Facebook group every day and answer the question about the material that Dean teached. See, imperfect. The material that Dean taught.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So the first day I go live and I share my video. And Dan, about 20 minutes later, I get a slew of messages from people in the group from all over the world who were like, "Oh my gosh, can you teach me how to do that?" And I remember being like, what are they talking about? Like, what is that? And then I realized, because as the week went on, I was getting more messages every day, every day. And I said, wow, they want help with how to be themselves on camera, because that's all I was doing. My videos were imperfect. I was quite imperfect. So at the end of that week, Dean's team reached out to me. And I want to make this clear. Dean and Tony only connected with me through video. So this is the power of using video in your business, in your marketing. It is the #1 marketing tool. I got on video and did these live videos. At the end of that week, Dean interviewed me live in front of the group and then asked if I would be on his podcast. So then he interviewed me on his podcast. A month later, Tony Robbins had a challenge. Now this time there were 300,000 people in the group. Same thing, would go live every day, get tons of messages. And at the end of that challenge, his national speaker, Carissa Kuchis, was like, and we want to call out one person who delivered so much value every day. Renée Marino, you just won 5 days to Tony Robbins Resort in Fiji. And I'm like, what? And that all came about from showing up on video. That's it. 6 months later, Dean's team reaches out to me and says, Dean would love to know if you would co-host his and Tony's World Summit. And I flew out to Miami, West Palm. And there I was on a stage, Dan, virtual stage, 9,000 Zoom screens from people all over the world. And I was co-hosting this event with Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Russell Brunson, Pete Vargas, Pat Quinn. The list goes on. Jenna Kutcher, Barry Baumgardner, Brendan Bouchard. And it was surreal. And it just magnified the power of communication and connection, and how connection, when you are being yourself, shines through on video just like it does in person.
Gosh, I love it, Renee. I'm so glad we had you on. I know you added a ton of value to me and all of our listeners. If people want to get a hold of you or get in touch with you about more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, reach out to me on my website, my email is renee@reneemarino.com, but you can just go to my website, reneemarino.com, and there you can see all of my stuff. You can order my book from there. And yeah, I'd love to connect. I really love connecting with listeners who share their takeaways when I've done a great interview like this.
Yeah, and this is Renée Marino. It's Renee.
Two E's. Marino, Marino, reneemarino.com.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you and looking forward to seeing all you do in the months and years to come.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was my honor.
You bet.